Today is April 14th. There's no Yankees baseball. There's no sports of any kind, but there is Ryan Ruocco. He joined us, and we're going to talk some Yanks.
Talking Yanks with old JOMBOY and Jake. Recaps galore and weekly awards. Stat lines, steaming hot takes. Get your Yankees news with these two fine dudes. It's time for Talkin' Yanks. Talking Yanks with old JOMBOY and Jake.
And Ryan Ruocco.
Talking Yanks with old JOMBOY and Jake.
And Ryan Ruocco. Welcome to Talkin' Yanks. My name is JOMBOY. I'm coming to you from my apartment in Manhattan. And I have co-host and best good friend Jake coming to you from his apartment in Manhattan. BBD, producer BBD, is with us. And it's another rainy, dreary day of quarantine, Jake.
Corn beans.
Yeah,
man. It's still happening.
The quarantine.
But if you don't like quarantine, listen to our conversation with Ryan Ruocco because he's awesome.
He is the best, and we had a really long conversation, so we're going to make the intro probably pretty short. We just talked about basically just a catch-up section, talked a lot about R2C2, a tiny bit about the Yankees, mostly about life.
A lot of life. Good stuff.
A lot of life. BBD, if you could sum it up in one word, you would use the word?
One word.
Lovely.
Wow, huge.
Good
All
word.
right, let's just throw it straight to that.
Do you have to do Patreons or anything?
Patreons. We could do them, but I don't know if I have it up yet. And you know what, dude? The email I use for Patreon, it always signs me out of it. It's really pissing me off. So I don't know if I can do it.
I just wish I didn't bring it up at this point.
Me too, because we have Erica Block. Shout out. She wrote an article about us. She's a big old Yankee fan. Joseph Randazzo.
We might have done these, but still, run it back.
No, Randazzo did both Patreons, and I asked you to say his Paisan name.
Thanks,
with proof.
Randazzo.
And Gary Laspiza. Now, there may be more, but there may not. But those guys, they sponsored, Erica, Joseph, and Gary, they sponsored this interview with Ruocco. And they were happy to do it. Here we go.
Back to back, belly to belly.
We are joined by Andrew Eugene Pettit Stan, Ryan Ruocco. Rooks, how you doing, man?
That's the first time I have ever been introduced that way, and I have to say it's my favorite introduction ever because it combines like the biggest fan of as a kid and remain huge fans of. Eminem, because you used the Stan reference.
Yep.
And Andy Pettit, because my favorite athlete of all time.
Yeah, wow. Jake, did you even realize the Eminem route?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I almost went Marty Glickman because I remember we did that the first time and we were so nervous and Ruocco was like proud and we were like, yes, nailed it. And then I thought about doing like 3-time appearance, like I was doing like your all-star introduction or something like that. But I figured you can never go wrong with Andrew Eugene, as you well know.
Well, and next time you can go with 4-time appearance because every time you're on Talkin' Yanks, it does feel sort of like being a member of an all-star team. So
wow.
I will say this time the intro was perfect, and next time you already have a perfect one ready and teed up.
This is your first time without hair, and as a
how about that?
As a married man?
Well, not engaged still.
Oh
But my fiance loves it. She's like, she's like, I never ever want you to grow out your hair again, and just kind of started because, we're here and I can't get a haircut, and I was like, and, I have like different follicle challenges anyway. And so I was like, you know what? Like, let me just see what this looks like. And I kind of went like buzz cut, but not like totally buzz. And I was like, oh, I like this. And like, oh, my life's easier. And then she was like, I think you should see what it looks like even shorter. So I was like, F it. Let me just like go for it. And then the feedback from friends and family, and most importantly, Andrea, has been We love it. You have a beautiful shaped head. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go
Yeah,
with it. And
that's-
it feels nice to do this all day.
Yeah, that's risky because, I think my head's probably got some weird bumps back here or something like that.
But you know what, dude? You don't really have to, like, I look at your hair. You're going to have that forever, Like,
It's thick, but
He's got a nice
it's
head.
it's real gray.
yeah, but gray's all right. Like,
That plays.
yeah, gray plays, Jake. You're right. Like, when I grow out my scruff a little bit, I get excited seeing the gray in there.
Ooh,
Like,
okay.
it's a sexy look, man.
I got a whole patch on my chin.
Yeah, see, that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. Nothing wrong with gray. And you know what? The good thing is too, in both of your situations, like, you got options, right? You both have options. Like, if you wanted to, you could, and it would be back very shortly. So you could always check it out. Me, on a scale of options of like 0 to 10, I have about a 0 to 3 scale I can work with. And so I found sort of a happy place within that scale.
So do you
Yeah,
think
man,
this is a new lifestyle move? My uncle, he started
Yeah.
shaving his head youngish, and he's like never looked back. It's like Bic, nonstop.
I think it is, man. I think it is. I haven't gone yet with like the razor.
Okay.
I've been doing it with like no guard on the whatever. Like, it's like a clipper, but it actually
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know what
but
you're
it's
talking
even
about.
like this one's like I've been using a beard and sideburn one because it gets a little tighter. So, and then I'll do like slightly longer on top. But I haven't gone full razor yet, but that's probably the next step. And yeah, there's no way I will ever like have anything other than some iteration of what's going on now. I just am immediately seeing like, well, first of all, like I said, like as Paul Neal would say, hey, if mama likes it,
Yeah.
that's what's most important. So, my fiance likes it, or Paul would say mama for his lovely wife, Neville. Like, so there's no need to go another direction. But more importantly, it's like, or equally as important, it's like, oh my gosh, life is just so much easier this way.
Yeah,
So-
one less thing you got to worry about every morning.
Yeah, exactly, man.
That's what all the millionaires do. That's why they all wear the same outfit every single day, and they never change. And it's a hoodie or it's a black shirt. It's just decision fatigue.
That's the big isn't that what who does that? Facebook founder does that.
Yeah, Zuckerberg,
Zuckerberg does
Steve
that.
Jobs wore the same thing every day. A lot of really, because it's decision fatigue. The more decisions you have to make, the more you get tired of making decisions. So the millionaires thing is like, make as little as you possibly can until you get to your office. So that's why a lot of
You know what I think about this though? I do think sometimes about this, and I think, did they say this before they were rolling in dough? Because it's a great philosophy, and I do think there's some merit to it. But did you have it before your wallet made you permanently cute? Or were you bold enough to make this decision before? Some of them I think before, but some of them I think probably, it's like, well, yeah, you can wear a t-shirt and sweatpants every day when you're worth $15 billion. Like, you know what? It's somebody's going to still think that's adorable look on you.
Yeah, I think Steve Jobs had a bunch of weird ones. I think he only ate fruit and he smelled absolutely terrible, but no one could tell him that. And he was like, oh, it's because I eat a fruit-only diet. He had a lot of really weird things, and it's probably because he was a millionaire first, and then he didn't care anymore.
Yeah. Your options get expanded when you have when you have the dough. I didn't know the fruit thing though. I'm gonna have to read. I haven't read the Jobs biography, so maybe that's maybe it's in there and I've just missed it.
He was an odd guy. I've gone the Adam Sandler, CC Sabathia route, where I am just committed to basketball shorts and hoodies, or sweatpants and hoodies. I'm not getting dressed up for anything anymore. Now that this is my full-time job, I'm committed to it. Like, we went to winter meetings and I was just pants and a hoodie. I hate dressing up. What winter meetings 2 ago, I wore a suit to try and impress everyone. It sucked.
Yeah. Jake, what do you think? Is this the right move from Jimmy?
It is. I mean, I think there's gonna. you got to find your thing. I think it's kind of the signature. JOMBOY, he wants to go full Adam Sandler. He's there, and I think it's you're already new comfort level with the bald thing. It's the play. I like throwing on just the sports coat, and it tightens me up in the middle, a little bit. Still wear it's like a little formal, a little not. But if I think I need to do it, because if I don't, like, I'll just never get taken seriously. And so, which, by the way, I asked Jack Curry. We had him on at winter meetings, and I asked, like, one of my few serious questions. I was like, Jack, you are so good at being serious and delivering, like, your statements and those cutaways and everything he does. Like, Jack Curry is the professional of professionals. And so I asked him, and I was like, I'm being dead serious. Like, what can I do? And he kind of, in a Jack Curry nice way, he was like, you're kind of good at your thing. It's like, all right, Jack, I got it. I will stay out of there.
That's funny. Curry and Rinaldi both have that going on.
Yeah,
they both have the ability to, like, very professionally information. Like, there's just, like, there's a peaceful way about them.
There's this, it's always blows my mind when you're watching a game, and even when you're in studio, when it goes to Bob or Jack in the studio, and you guys just nail that, like, 5-sentence update in 20 seconds, and then it goes out. I'm like, what the hell? Like, how did they do that so perfectly? I just stutter and stammer until I end. But those are, like, I always get like, whoa, that was crazy. I don't think people realize how hard that is to actually just do that in one shot.
Yeah. I'm going to, for whatever reason, I'm just letting you guys know, it broke up a second in the middle of what you were just saying, Jimmy. So, but I'm saying, were you talking about delivering, like, those on cameras when you're talking about something serious?
Yeah. When it just cuts to you and then you deliver it for 10, 15 seconds, it's like 3 sentences, and then it cuts away. And it makes it seem very easy. That's hard to do, to not stutter or stammer and just get your point across. And you guys all do it impressively. But I was saying, I don't think people realize it's hard to do that.
What's funny is you're right about, like, that's one of the differences between TV and radio is, when you're on radio, first of all, there's, like, sort of a casual connectivity that allows you to be less perfect with your wording, and it almost feels more appropriate then. You are, right? Like, you're not accounting for anything else but your words. Whereas on TV, what I just did, just a second, right? And I do that on camera, like, all of a sudden it's, like, alarming to the audience, right? If it's on radio, it's no deal at all. And so when you're actually, or if I'm on TV and I'm just doing play-by-play, like, it doesn't matter if I take that weird pause, or, I have sort of like a syllable slip in somewhere it's not supposed to. But if I'm on camera at the moment it happens, it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Is he okay? So yeah, when you're on camera doing something, you want to, like, really try and be pristine with your words.
Yeah, it's more like a play. Like, you got to hit every beat and get out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. Well, you were on, and I texted you this because you always find your way into viral moments. Like, I know you're everywhere all the time, Rooks, but you're doing boxing and basketball and NBA and WNBA and Yankees, but you found yourself into some awesome moments when you're on mic. And it wasn't awesome's a weird word, but when they canceled that game and Mark Cuban finds out, that clip went viral, and it's your voice. And I'm like, he did it again. He's there again. But so you had a whole different perspective of that situation. I mean, that had to be wild.
Yeah, dude, it was, it's wild to think about it being more than a month ago now, I was texting with Doris Burke, who I did the game with that night 2 days ago. And I said, can you believe it has been a month since we did that game? And she's like, it's so wild. And I think that the interesting things are, the interesting thing is, like, the month has felt like 3 years, but the days have gone fast. It's a weird juxtaposition, right? Because it's not like I don't know about you guys, but even without having my normal, routine or flow of content the way I would usually do, these days are still going fast. Like I'll look up all of a sudden, I'm like, dang, it's 4 o'clock. Like what? It's not like I'm sitting here like, why am I here? You know what I mean? Like I have stuff to do. The days are moving, but yet just like the way things have shifted and the way the news constantly changes and just the spectrum of what we're dealing with has made it feel like a lifetime ago. But that night was definitely the most memorable of my career. I know usually memorable has a positive connotation. In this case, I mean it sort of in the way you meant awesome, Jimmy. It's just like, very unique. It was the most unique night of my career. And I mean, it was the most emotional night I've ever had on air as well for Doris and me both. Um, Tom as well, but I think Doris and I are more inclined to cry at any moment. So we both are just kind of built like that. But yeah, man, it was sort of like going into that game. There was this eerie feeling of waiting for something big to pop, and I knew we were moving towards a significant change, but I knew it was going to come at some point soon, but you didn't know exactly how it would happen, and it happened in a shocking and disorienting way, and we just happened to be on the air when it did.
What was your build up, and then like what was your afterwards? Did you head straight home and knowing that that's home for the long haul, or did you think like, oh, this might just be a couple weeks and hang out wherever you were, or how did you handle it, and the crew? I guess.
That's that's a good question, man. I was more on the like preparing for the apocalypse train early, and so
Good for
I
you.
even yeah, man. I had been following it closely because of Andrea and I had a scheduled wedding in Italy for June of this year, and so when I saw what was happening there, I especially was like really honing in on it and following day to day, and I just kind of knew. I was like, well, this is clearly going to happen here, and this is the way it's going to happen, and so I was kind of, I was monitoring it, and as I was traveling, I was getting frustrated, and I was like, even talking to my family, I was like, this is dumb. We're late. We're late on this. Like, this is about to be a huge problem here, and so I was waiting for it to happen. In the midst of that, I had like ordered a ton of paper towels, ton of toilet paper, like all that kind of stuff. And so I knew when that happened, I was like, I need to get home immediately because I knew it was not going to be something casual or short term. And I had actually Nets the night before I did that game. I had done the Nets beating the Lakers in LA. I had been with them in LA Monday and Tuesday. And I had left a bag in LA because I was going Wednesday morning to do the Dallas-Denver game. And then I was flying back to LA Thursday because I was going to be doing Nets Clippers on Friday there. I was rejoining the Nets on their road trip. And so rather than travel everything to Dallas, I left a bag in LA. And I immediately, as literally during the game, after the season being suspended news broke while we were on the air, I texted my boy Aaron Bergman. Shout out to Aaron. He's a big Yankee fan who lives in LA. And he was like, and I said, hey man, I left my bag at the hotel. Would you be able to go get it at some point? Because I'm not going back to LA. And then I texted our travel person who does travel for us with Disney, and I said, hey, can you get me on a flight in the morning, back to New York from Dallas? Because at that point I just said Dallas to LA. So I knew I was going home for good then. And something weird I was even thinking about at that time, guys, like normally I'd take like the first flight out, or I would have red-eyed into Dallas from LA the night before. I would have then taken like this 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. flight the next morning back to New York. But I was already thinking about this in a way of like, it being present in here that I was like, I don't want to compromise my immune system in any way that I can, affect, So I didn't take the red eye Tuesday night because I didn't want to have my sleep all messed up. Instead, I went at 7 a.m. from LA to Dallas. I didn't take the 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. flight from Dallas back to New York. I took the 9:30 a.m. because I knew it was still early enough I'd get out, but I didn't want to get no sleep and then be flying like system like that. So I was kind of like really dove deep in this early and then immediately was like, all right, it's time to activate and get home.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy to think about. The NBA pulls the plug, and then those following days, the golf tournament that weekend, they played their opening round and then they canceled, and then spring training canceled itself. And you start thinking about if NBA waited another 24 hours to pull the plug, and that kind of ripple effect. And it's scary stuff at this point.
Yeah. You know what, Jake? Sorry.
Please.
Go ahead, man.
No, you're good.
Well, I was just going to say, man, that just leads me to something that has blown my mind when I see people saying like, oh, they reported this amount of deaths and it's only this, like, why we shouldn't have been making such a big deal of it. I'm like, no, you idiots. Like,
Yeah.
Don't you understand? Like, the reason these numbers, which have still been horrifying and painful, have not been quite as bad is because of those measures that are being taken, because people are listening and they're quarantining and they're self-isolating and they're social distancing. If not, those numbers would hit those absolutely, dizzying and really, truly astonishing projections. So that is to just kind of your point, Jake, about like being a day late or whatever. It's like you have to be ahead of these things. And if you do the right things, you don't end up seeing that damage because you did the right things. But if you wait, you do.
Those people are also just honing in on the death numbers and not the affected and like the hospital numbers. And like, it's like counting just the dead and not the wounded. And there's a lot of people that are affected and getting sick. Like, it's just a common flu. It's like the common flu doesn't pack hospitals to an unreasonable amount every single year. So
you got to be early with it, no doubt. So I'm glad the NBA took the swift action they did, because I think it kind of jolted our country towards the action we needed to take. I'm sorry, something.
Oh, and you're good, and we're still there. I was gonna ask, are you going through? How do I want to phrase this? You're engaged, and you are quarantined. Are you going through a testful engagement? Do you think this is? Are you being put through the ringer, or how are you guys doing with it? And hey, you guys are cruising through, or what?
Yeah, no, man. You want to come answer, honey? Come here.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can get her over. She says no. She has a call. So her work, she works in finance, and her work is very much as is right now.
Cruising,
honestly, saving grace during this. I love, so I would give you a romantic, sappy answer probably no matter what.
Yes.
But even the facts are that the beauty of this time has been the time we've gotten to spend together. And, we both have challenging schedules at times, not to the point that it's like we don't see each other or something like that. Like, we're very, very much diligent about making sure we make time for each other, even amidst when we're in bad travel patches. But it's rare for me to get, I've not been in my apartment for a month straight. I don't know, in 7-8 years. I have no idea, so to get this kind of schedule has been totally unique. And honestly, for us, like, our relationship has been the biggest blessing of it, because, it's like I get to hang out with my best friend all day. We found a way to, try enjoyment amidst the difficult time. And I actually, as someone who, I'm 33, Andrea and I have been engaged for a year and a half, dated for a year before that. Like, but I had no serious girlfriend from the time I was 21 till I was 30, and so I was like single guy in in my family or whatever, with gatherings with my cousins and all that. I was always like, no, it's just Ryan. There's not someone else who Ryan brings. Like, it's just Ryan, which was fine. But I will say, I know what that life is like. And I am very grateful that I have someone during this time in particular, because I think I would be, be feeling the effects even more if I didn't.
Yeah. I was just saying, because I'm with my girlfriend, Jake's with his as well, but we're doing fine. Right. People keep asking us like, hey, how you holding up? I'm like, we're having a blast over here.
Bro, exactly. Like me, Andrea, and don't we, Andrea? That I don't know if you can hear her yelling. But like people were always like, when we were going to move in together, they're like, oh, it's a different level, you're thinking, and I'm like, and we had essentially kind of lived together anyway, but we love it. Like I've loved it. She's loved it. Like, it's like, of course, like there are different things that can be daunting about, I guess, any huge life change, no matter what it pertains to. Right. But like, people always try and make their experiences yours, and it may not be. So I'm here to say, I love living with my fiance. I think it's fantastic. And it's been a blessing. So I'm glad to hear you say, Jimmy, when people ask like, oh, has it been bad? And you're like, no, it's been great. It's been awesome.
Yeah. We woke up at, like Saturday, Katie and I woke up at 10. We watched 2 episodes of a show. That took us to noon in bed. We made pancakes, bacon, and breakfast for ourselves, and then we stayed on the couch and we finished the entire show, and that took us till 4. And we were like, "Holy smokes, that was a really nice day." The next day we went for a walk and did a lot of stuff, but yeah, I was like, I'm fine. I worked from home. Like when Cece says he loves this, like watching shows all day and just hanging out, I'm like, yep. Although we did just get an office, and it was supposed to be a very exciting time for baseball and for the company. But other than that, it's great.
Yeah, but the office plans, they'll be back at some point.
Yeah. Just paid rent today, so we'll be back.
Oh, good. Hey, that's being able to pay rent is a blessing right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There you go. And I knew that was going to be your answer, Ryan. So that was a little setup, and she could hear it in the background, so you're good. And
I appreciate you, Jake. Very slick.
No problem,
man.
I get it. I'm in tight quarters, and I can imagine being trapped. Let's talk a little Yanks, huh? I know it's kind of one of these weird things to do at this point, but I was gonna say, where were you at with this season? But that's too heavy. Who was I'll start with the Jakey question. Who was someone that you were into this season? Like if someone cut away from the mic or the camera and they were like, you'd be like, I think Luke Voigt's gonna hit 35 this year, or I could see Mike Talkman playing 150 and having a 5 WAR. Whose kind of train did you hitch onto?
That's a really good question. Who was I feeling like that about? I was feeling that way a little bit with Giancarlo Stanton.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the injury thing derailed that a little bit, but I was feeling like he was going to have a huge bounce back. And are you able to edit if I just hold on one second? Just my doorbell's ringing out.
Yeah, of course.
Bring him in.
Oh, no. Oh, they were? Okay. Sorry. Okay. I'll go back to answering the question. Sorry.
You're good.
Sorry, David. That gives you a weird edit. I was feeling like Stanton because, I've gotten to know him a little bit, and I think people don't understand sometimes just how deeply he cares and just how hard he works. And, that's not to say those things are always going to necessitate success. But anybody who thinks like this is a dude who, was happy with how last season went. Oh, no. Like, he wants to be on the field desperately, and he works his tail off and prepares his ass off. I mean, and you even saw it, like, I think in fairness to him, it was a ridiculously limited sample size, but in that sample size we saw in 2019, Stanton's quality of at-bats, I think, were noticeably better than what we saw in 2018. And even if you look at his at-bats in the playoffs, I felt that way as well, where he was laboring through it, with what he was still dealing with his knee. And I think we saw that when he was healthy. And we've always heard that, like, as he gets to know pitchers better, as he gets to know a league better, that's where he has, his greatest success. And that was something Aaron Boone has talked to me about a variety of times when I've asked him about kind of his free swing approach and the way he leaves the zone. And Aaron would say, like, I'm telling you, like, yeah, he may have a little more of that than some of the guys on the team, but you will see a significant difference in that quality of at bat because of the way he studies and when he gets to know these pitchers. And I thought we were seeing that last year, small sample size where he was healthy. So I was really looking forward to him having a huge year. And who knows, Corona, no Corona, if that would or will happen, because obviously he was dealing with other injuries in spring. But he's a guy who I still think, like, I know a lot of people, I think, kind of have unfairly closed the book on him and what he can be as a contributor here. And I haven't. I still believe he can be a big piece of, the Yankees being successful.
What we liked last year was how happy he seemed when he finally got back before he got hurt, diving to third. Like, he hit a home run. He was just the most smiley person I've seen. And he was so closed off with all the injuries while rehabbing. And I remember that press conference when finally a reporter said, "So what happened?" And he said, "Okay, well," and he just listed, "I did this, and then this happened." And he was so open. He's like, "But I'm good now." And then it lasted like 3 days because he got hurt again. But that's what Jake and I noticed. Is like, well, dude, this dude's really happy to be back. Like, and then he got hurt again, so.
You also know, like, does a guy fit in with the group or not? And in 2017, a culture was established, right? And there was sort of a personality to the group. And you heard a lot of people saying, like, this is the best clubhouse we've had in a while, right? And so there was already some definition to the group and its personality when Stan came in. And immediately, I had people who are leaders in that clubhouse, CC included, saying, "Oh man, Stan fits in perfectly. Like, we love his personality in here. He fits in with the group so great." And they don't always, and there are people who will tell me when they don't. So I know when they're being honest. And they were being honest about Giancarlo, and he does fit in well with the group. So, I do hope he gets a chance to prove himself and to stay healthy and contribute, because I think it's something he desperately wants. And I do think that he has a personality that mixes well with the group in there.
Yeah. It's a really bizarre thing that, like you said, the way a lot of Yankee fans view Stanton. I mean, he in theory, he's got this kind of great New York personality. Like, he's got like a little silly quirk to him, and he'll send it back a little to the reporters if he needs to.
Yeah.
And yet we put up this wall because he's a guy who signed a giant contract that we would all sign instantly. And not a lot of us are worth. I'm not. But
can I throw out an interesting, like, it's just like sort of a weird paradox I've noticed when it comes to the New York fan. All right,
sure.
So, sort of to your point, Jay. Like, so Yankee fans are incredibly demanding of the team, right? Like, we see that comes with the success. I think it's part of what makes players love playing here, is because of the accountability they're held to by the fans, and you'll hear them say that. And I do think they mean that, because, like, it just feels good to know people care,
Yeah.
But they're really demanding. And it's like, if the Yankees are, 8 games up in the AL East, and they make, and they don't make a move at the deadline, it's like, how did you not add someone like this? You're not going to win the World Series.
Yeah.
I know you're not going to, whatever, right? There's, like, I'm not saying every Yankee fan is like that, right? Like, there's like a noticeable vocal presence to that sort of mindset. And yet, take the Knicks. Now, the Knicks could not have had a worse 2-decade run than they've had, right? And yet,
don't test them. Don't test them on that, because they could try.
Right. But if you criticize their 2-decade run and you say, like, hey, like, Kevin Knox, that wasn't the right pick. I'm not saying he was or wasn't, but I'm just saying that as an example. Or it's like the team gets defended to the hilt by the Knick fan. And it's like, how dare you say that about Frank Neal? The King is going to be a championship team, of course. And it's just interesting to me because a lot of those people are the same people. The Knick fan and the Yankee fan are the same exact person. The one who is incredibly demanding of a Yankee team that, will overlook a lot of the successful things to demand more, but is the same person who is then incredibly forgiving of misstep after misstep from the Knicks and will defend them despite not actually having the intel that, say, the Yankees do for that positive column. And it always blows my mind. To me, it's got to be some sort of psychological phenomenon that could be explained by someone much smarter than me, because a lot of times it's the same person having a totally contradictory argument just based on the different teams.
They say that people who speak multiple languages have different personalities in each language. That's kind of what it's like for sports fans. I mean, Red Sox fans and Patriots fans, that's like blue collar fandom and white collar fandom, same person. They just go. You're
right. You're right.
Like one is like all uppity and like we're the best, and the other is like, we're a bunch of idiots. We're scrappy, and it's like you're same person.
You're right. There's something. Maybe the language thing actually describes the fandom thing. It probably does. It probably does. But it always amazes me because I'm like, wow, this is the same dude who just like yelled at this person for criticizing the Knicks offseason. And yet he's also yelling at this person for lauding the Yankees at the deadline. It's like it's a weird juxtaposition, but it's probably, the same as knowing Spanish and, Arabic.
Yeah. Two different things.
We always land here. We always end up on the same conversation.
I want to talk about R2C2 with you.
All right, cool.
Because it's been 3 years now. I believe both these Talkin Yanks and you guys both started in 2017, right?
Yeah. High five, guys.
Yeah. I think around the same time. But you guys have changed, I don't know, networks once or twice. Yep. You've had a lot of guests. You do multiple versions of interviews, and you've had a lot of people. Is R2C2 today what you hoped it would be when you started it?
I think it is. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think maybe the one way it isn't is, or it's different is, I think we probably envisioned having a more even split as far as our interviews go within the sports world and outside of the sports world. And we have been, as you guys know, heavily based in the sports world. But, we dip outside of it occasionally. And that honestly, I don't look at it as a bad thing that we've ended up this way, because I think what we found out is like we have a unique platform for people within sports to honestly show their personalities, and tell stories that they otherwise don't either have the time or the comfort to tell. And so, but our, general motivation behind this was wanting to create a platform for interesting conversation that you were only going to get here in long form without turning into any sort of, gotcha type platform or turning making mountains out of molehills or, being controversial or critical of athletes. Like, that's just not what we were, what we wanted to do. And I think what's been good is we've been able to really avoid that and, kind of establish a place where players know now, like, oh, I can go there and like, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to have a good conversation. And, they're probably going to be more comfortable to talk honestly than they are in most places.
So when CC officially retires, I know he was flirting about coming back at the bullpen thing, hanging through. Did you get any like fist pump from that? And in regards to the podcast, like things will be easier, or now we can do this that we weren't planning on doing? Or is there any hesitation like, oh no, now he's not in the clubhouse, maybe now it's not as Yankees focused? Was there any kind of just mindset that changed with his retirement?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I feel like there's definitely, for the vast majority of athletes, they will tell you, and people who help them plan their post-playing careers will tell you, you're never more relevant than when you're on the field, right? Like, so the 25th man on the Yankees active roster may be more relevant to the audience at that moment than some, former 5-time All-Star, right? Like, just because he's on the active roster at that moment, we see it in the NFL too. It's like, oh, this guy's just a special teamer. Yeah, but he's the special teamer on a 10-win team, and in this city, they love that team, and so they love this guy, right? Like, but, when he retires, will they? Probably not, unless he had a huge role in the championship. Like, so there is that thought. However, where I think CC transcends it and where we are only aided by it is, like, CC has such an established and big personality, as you guys know, and he has so much clout and respect cross sports, and still in that clubhouse. Plus, he is remaining as a part of the organization as a special assistant to Cashman, and that is a very real role for him. So he still has relevance with today's team, but he also he connects with all athletes because he's done it all, right? He's won a Cy Young, he's won a World Series, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He has like this presence of like, yeah, I'm just going to say what I want to say. Like, I don't really care. Like sometimes even I think about things and I'm like, he'll put something up on his like personal Instagram, like, hey man, like, doesn't this dude like have someone who follows you or whatever? I don't care. Like, like he just like, he is who he is, and he's very, very comfortable with that. And I think it's what makes a podcast great and what makes people comfortable come on. But it also is what gives it staying power beyond him playing, right? Because he has that kind of personality. And so really it's just been positive because his availability has increased. And now it's going to be me who has the more challenging travel schedule, although that was, sort of upended, obviously, with what's going on right now. But yeah, it just becomes like really easy to find times to record, which is awesome because that was the greatest challenge for us. And to CC's credit, he still made it happen always.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm sure, have seen this in different ways as well. I can't tell you how many athletes I've seen who've wanted to start something like this, who start it and who dip out immediately, or who have no consistency to their contributions because it's not their priority, and nor should it be. CC, while playing, still made it a priority, which was incredible and great for us. Foothold. But now he can put even more time, and it's just less challenging for us to find time.
Does CC, is he a connection to your guests ever? As in like asking them to come on? And then the reason I ask is because Trevor Plouffe is officially part of JOMBOY Media now. And and Plouffe's been getting friends to come on, and he kind of learned the hard way that you can ask someone to come on and they'll say yes, but it's not always that they show up when they say they're going to show up. And Trev was like, this is bullshit. Like, why do players do this? And we're like, hey man, like, don't get mad at them, but that's what happens. Like, you ask a guy, they say yes in the moment, then the day comes. So I was wondering if CC has ever been like, what the hell? Like, I thought this guy was coming on, because I could see him getting upset about that.
You know what's funny is, like, I think C has ghosted so many people in his life.
Oh yeah, he probably respects it.
Yeah, he would never crush someone for not coming on. But have I told you guys the Star Wars story when we went to the premiere, when we were supposed to be going to Last Jedi together?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so I'll tell you this just to give you an idea of CC ghosting. So like, we had Michael Strahan had hooked us up with tickets, or Michael Strahan's assistant had hooked us up with tickets to the friends and family showing of Last Jedi in New York when it was coming out a couple of years ago. And C and I were pumped up because it was like on a Monday or Tuesday. It was, 5 days before the release or 4 days before the release. And so we're going, and I'm like texting, like, oh, I'll meet you at the theater. Yeah, whatever. So we get to the day, and he's like, "Oh yeah, what time is it?" Yeah. It's this time. Okay, cool. Yeah. I get to the theater and I'm like, "Hey man, there's kind of a line to get in, whatever. You got to like give your cell phone. I'm online right now, so you could just dive in with me when you get here." No answer. I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "Hey man, like I'm getting towards the front of the line. Are you almost here?" No answer. Okay. Then I'm like at the line. I get my tickets. I see a text from him. He's like, "Oh man, I'm at Little C's game right now. Might be tough for me to make it in time." I'm like, the movie starts in like 15 minutes, okay? And I'm like, might be tough for you to make it in time. So I'm like, "See, you're in New Jersey right now. Like you're definitely not making it in time. Like,
You're not even coming.
you're not making it in time." He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, dude, next time, how about just tell me if you're not gonna come? Like, just let me know." He's like, "Ah, I gotta be honest with you, man. We're gonna be friends a long time. This shit's gonna happen again." And I was just like he just like is oddly unapologetic about ghosting anybody. He done it to Derek Jeter, where he said he was gonna play in his charity tournament golf. Jeter's texting him, sees doesn't answer. Day comes, he's already sold a foursome. C just doesn't show up. He's not there, like, because he was afraid to like have a confrontation. Now he had a clinic the same day, like, so he just ghosted. He goes to Jeter. If he can ghost Jeter, he can ghost anybody.
Yeah.
So to your point, though, I don't think he actually would get mad at any guest who ghosted us. However, he is good about helping facilitate getting guests on, and I see it maybe even more so now where he has more time to allocate to this, where he'll text us and he'll be like, "Hey man, this dude wants to come on. Let's get him on." So like this week, we're actually recording with AJ Burnett, which I think will be awesome. And I just feel like none of us have really heard from AJ in a while. And AJ is like a interesting dude who, when he's mad, he's scary, but he's also like sarcastic and funny. But like, I think he's going to be great. But this was one of those where like C texts us and he's like, "Hey, AJ wants to come on. Let's do AJ." So like then we facilitate through him. So he does it, but I don't know if we've had a scenario yet where someone has told him like, "Yeah, I'll come on," and then they don't. Maybe there's been one or two, but I think like C's just like, "Oh yeah, it's okay," like because like I would do the same thing,
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense. It's a tricky
Phil
thing.
Hughes and Burnett. You guys are burning through some of the old Yankee staffs, huh?
We're going 09 hard, Maybe the week after will be Jabba. Who knows?
Oh,
There you go.
love to talk.
Yeah.
Love to talk to Jabba and ask him honestly, like, you were 10 years too early. If he was 10 years later, they wouldn't have messed around with the bullpenning and the starting and the crazy Jabba rules. He wouldn't have gotten in trouble for fist pumping after strikeouts and being excited. Like he was almost the guinea pig for a lot of stuff in like a changing time in Yankees baseball and baseball in general. And I think he got the short end of that. I'd love to.
It's a good point about like kind of that moment in time and how rare it was, right? Like the fist bumping, it always drove me crazy how people got mad over that. Like as a fan, I was so jacked up whenever he would have 2 strikes and 2 outs on a batter. Like I was just waiting for him to go nuts, and it would fire me up,
Yeah.
In fact, I remember the Yankees had a series against Boston late in that season when they were making their wild card push at the stadium, and the headline was "Go Nuts," and it was Jabba fist pumping after a strikeout, and there was like a squirrel in the like little 2 box of the cover because there was some squirrel who was like sitting on the foul pole or terrorizing the field consistently throughout the game. And then Jabba also going nuts with the fist pump. And the Yankees, like I don't know if they won, they either like won 2 out of 3 in the series or they swept the series or whatever, but it was big in propelling them to getting the wild card that year.
Yeah, Jabba Mania was awesome. Like that first year when he came out, Jabba. It's the best chantable name. It was so cool. And then, I'd love to hear him look back on that time, because it was that year where they were like, all right, you're going to start, but only for 3 innings. Like they were basically doing bulk opener with him, and should have just kept him in the pen.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because like at the time I defended it because, you know, I saw the value in starters, especially at that time, right? And like we were seeing how nasty he could be as a starter. Like, you know, we all think back to that game at Fenway, right, where he outduels Beckett. And, you know, you're thinking like, oh, all right, this is, you know, that was in 08. This is what this can look like, right? But, you know, now with the value of relievers, you know, I'd be curious how they would have done it. I still feel like they might have tried to still, since he was a starter, like they may have still tried to finagle it, but there's just so much more intel now about how to go about that process.
It took them 4 years to realize they probably just keep Sessa in the bullpen. So they still try to do it.
Hey, Sessa, isn't it funny? Sessa played a sneaky big role last year.
He had a good year.
Yeah.
For his role. For his role,
Yeah.
it was great. It's crazy.
So solid for his role.
So we heard. Oh, Jake, you got something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just tidying up R2C2. What's your ep if like someone asks you or someone hears about it that you're like, go check this one out? Like maybe it's a guy who surprised you, or because you know you guys have interviewed a lot of big names. I mean, DeAndre Jordan, Mookie Betts. You're covering everything. But did maybe one sneak up on you? Because I know we on our Talkin Baseball podcast we did Jason Kendall the other day, and I'm going to be talking about that for a while because we all walked away like we almost got punched in the mouth, and it was exciting and it was scary, and we all had questions prepared and none of them got asked, but it was awesome. I guess I'm asking, who's in R2C2? If someone's asking you the ones that jump out, who are they?
I think unexpectedly someone who's been unbelievable. Both times he's been on now is Sonny Gray. Like Sonny, the first time we had Sonny on, I was just blown away with how good he was. And the stories he told, like he was incredible. And we had Sonny on with Trevor Bauer from Arizona. And that actually, I think maybe you guys even did some with one of the YouTube clips of it. I'm not sure, but like the YouTube views are super high for what we're used to. We don't, you know, it's not quite as big as what you guys are used to in your world, but like it really got a lot of traction. And that's one that I just think showcased when the pod is at its best, because it's just, you're seeing like some really interesting, honest conversation with total comfort from people who are credible, who've had success in this league, who've been through some trials and tribulations, and have really interesting personalities. And so that would be one I would send people to. Albert Pujols last year, like I was shocked at how good Pujols was, just because a lot of times a huge star you think is like just sort of they've been worn down by getting interviewed over the years, you know, and it's like, but you know, that's where CeCe is so huge. And Albert at the end of it said, "This is the most fun I've had all year," which was probably a commentary on the season the Angels had, but it was also, you know, very like complimentary. And so like the Pujols one is one I would go back to and definitely listen. One of my favorites always, and she's a really close friend, but when we have Sue Bird on, Sue is just, she's so cool and has such a great personality, and she's smart, has great perspective. Those ones I feel like are ones that I always enjoy Didi and Hicks together, because you got a real feel for the way they rag on each other. That's kind of like a brotherly, you know, insight. But I feel like if there was one, even like Machado is a good one too to go back to, like, because I don't think people realize like, oh, he has this kind of personality to him, you know.
So as you're naming these, I'm remembering like the thing I took from that episode, you know? Like Machado talking about, he was making fun of the way Hardy played defense, but also respecting it at the same time. He's like, yeah, he looks funny, but he does it every single time. Pujols talking about his path to the bigs was crazy. There's like, I mean, it's really good. Whenever you have Jefferson on, I think it's a really fun conversation.
Yeah. Oh, he's hilarious, man. He is hilarious. It's interesting. Like the things you take away from certain episodes, like Britain's excellent. He is, I mean, him telling, last year telling the story of how he got his jersey number, and the old, clubhouse manager for the Orioles, like basically, telling him like, you better be happy with that jersey. Like you're not getting a different one. Like after Buck Showalter said, hey, if you guys want to like change a jersey or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, guys tell good stories. I think like I'm naming a bunch of different ones because they all, I think about them all. I'm like, man, that was like, oh, I love that. Like even the first time we had A-Rod on, like he was awesome. But the Pujols one was particularly interesting to me because what you said, Jimmy, like he told such interesting stories about his ascent that I had no idea about, like, and the people he gravitated to, and what he was able to learn from them, and like hearing like specific conversations he had with legends and how that shaped his mentality and like really detail oriented telling of the story. Like Pujols was one I go back to and say like, oh, the only thing about Pujols that's a shame is I wasn't in the Bronx that day. So I was doing it from Connecticut, and C and Albert were together, which, in some ways might have even for this made it better. Cause like there was such, like, I always think the show's at its best when I can tee something up, but it's just really kind of C and then the athlete or the guest, like being able to go back and forth. And there was a lot of that day. So I wish I was there in person for it, but the content was great.
The Reggie Jackson episode, I had no idea that Reggie Jackson was that involved with the Yankees still. Like he was telling stories about CC being exhausted after a road game in Cleveland or something like that. And I was like,
Chicago, I think it was. Yeah.
Why is Reggie there? Why is he traveling with the team to away games? I had no idea he does that.
That's a good point, man. It's interesting how, because guys, for a lot of reasons, and you see this on your platform too, either one, they just haven't had the vessel to share certain things, right? Or two, they haven't had the comfort. And so when you combine the two where it's like, we don't have a clock on this. And like, you're talking to CC, like, it's amazing the stuff that ends up coming out. Like even, man, like I should say Aaron Boone has been one of my absolute favorite guests, and Mike Harkey, and we had them on together recently. They're just the stories they tell. And like some of the stuff that come, like even the most recent one with Harkey ratting out Boone basically for sitting on the back of the bus, drinking wine with Nevin watching The Bachelorette or The Bachelor, like hilarious stuff that you just like wouldn't know. Or, like,
you know what Harkey said when he said that D-Rob had no idea how to pitch? I was like, what?
Yes.
He's like that guy has no idea how to pitch. He just always throws the wrong pitch, but that's why it works. I was like, what?
Exactly. It was hilarious. He's like, and I would never tell him to change it now. Like, even he was telling some stories about like, because he was saying D-Rob was like one of the worst listeners or whatever of the guys in the bullpen. Like he was so honest about it. They're like, who's the, who listens, who doesn't, like, just going through that. And, he's great with that too. I mean, because I think, what's fun for us is like we all who consume this stuff on a daily basis, we know a certain level of things, but there's some stuff you just can't know unless people are willing to share it, and these guys, some really fun stuff that's not harmful to anybody, but that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's really good formats. We did a bunch of Twitter questions, and someone asked, what's something you take from each other's shows, and I won't make you lie about what you take from Talking Yanks, but you guys do interviews so well that it made me not want to do interviews until we could do them in that way. Like I like talking with a guy who you don't have a rapport with, and they don't realize that, hey, we just want to be chummy, and they try to treat us like we are the actual beat reporters, who they have to be guarded. Like I didn't want to do that at all. So we're getting to the point now where we had Ottavino on and we had Voigt on, and they were they were very like open, and we asked them questions. Like Ottavino was incredibly open, but I think listening to you guys made me like, that's how it should be. It should just be a conversation. And I was like, well, let's hold off until we get to the point where we can do that, because
I appreciate that, man. I mean, it's like, it's almost, it's like when you listen to Howard Stern and his interviews, you know, like that's, I feel like the goal for all of us that we'll never reach because he's just that much better. But, you know, like if you want to see, if you want to just look at baseline, who's the interviewer who most consistently gets the most interesting things out of their guests that you don't hear anywhere else? It's him, you know, and it's because he kind of has this like honest, total comfort. Plus, he has the respect instantly of the person who comes on based on what he's accomplished in his career. And it's like, you know, when you can get those things in place, where you really listen to what they have to say, and you make it conversational, you can get great stuff out of people. You know, I mean, just listening to Tom Brady with Stern the other day, like, you know, I haven't finished the interview yet, but like Tom's, you know, talking with a level of, you know, candor and even looseness with his language that he doesn't do anywhere else. And it just creates this feeling of like, oh, I'm really getting to know this guy, you know? And so like, that's what you want, you know, we want to create a like situation where you're listening and you're like, oh yeah, I'm really getting to know this guy. Like, this is cool. And Cece, being the respected dude who has the clout that he is, gives us a chance at like, you know, trying to, you know, get somewhere in the vicinity of that aspiration.
Yeah. Now, someone we talked to said they think CeCe still might try and make a comeback and pitch out of the bullpen, and their reasoning was, why do you have the surgery if he doesn't plan on pitching ever again?
Well, I do believe that he would have probably given it a try if he hadn't blown out his shoulder at the end of last year, and if Amber had allowed it. But at this point, no shot. His shoulder is still so messed up.
It's crazy.
Like, I don't know if he's going to need another operation. It is like, it is so messed up still. And he was joking the other day about throwing with his son in the backyard. And he's like, he needs a cutoff man, like, because he's like, I can't long toss, you know? So I think, you know, the phrase like leave it all out on the field, he actually left it all out on the field. And I don't think there's any reattaching it at this point.
That was nuts. Do you in any way during this quarantine and no sports to talk about at all, have you been like, damn, I wish I was still doing a radio show with Stephen A. Smith so we could just debate about nothing every day?
You know what's funny is, I will say this is a period of time where I would have been cool being on the air every day. Like I would have been down with that. Like, because there's some sort of like comfort and familiarity with connecting with an audience every day. And it gives you an escape from this, but it also gives you this feeling of community that you could be lacking right now, just due to the way we're all isolated. So I think it's like, it might.
Well, you talk about making mountains out of molehills. I mean,
you have no choice.
There's
right
nothing
now.
right now. Jake was joking. Okay, every radio station is going to do the Pete Rose debate at least one day.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true, man. You know, it's interesting. Michael was telling me the other day though, because I was like, "How are you coming up with the content or whatever?" And he was like, "You know, thank God I have Peter and Don." But he said, "You know, it's interesting because those 4 hours really have been sort of like a siloed
an escape
distraction for me from everything going on." And I do see that and feel that. You know, I know for me, like I did enjoy being on the air those days of like big news. Like I was on when the news happened that Jeter was going to retire. I happened to be hosting Alone that day. And I loved getting to just like, you know, be someone to communicate that to people and put my perspective on it. And same thing happened the day he played his final game at Yankee Stadium. I happened to be on the air Alone that day. Like, I love getting to do that. So I could see finding enjoyment in kind of sort of like that role. But man, it would be tough content wise. To come up with stuff every day right now.
Brutal. Yeah.
I'm a sports nut. It's all I've had. I'm talking to the right guy. Have you had your like low sports moment of quarantine? I think mine was, I think before WrestleMania, they were showing Brock Lesnar wrestle in college, and I watched that, and I was like, what am I doing? So have you caught yourself watching, like what has been the thing on TV or something you caught yourself doing that you were just like, I gotta refresh. I gotta reset the engine.
You know, I I've been enjoying watching some of the old Yankee games that we've been showing on Yes. And so it was funny, like when they had Jeter's final game at Yankee Stadium on a couple weeks ago, I was like, wow, I'm not just watching like Derek's at bats. Like, why am I so locked into the sixth inning of this game? You know,
Yeah.
I was like, I could just come back to Jeter getting up in the ninth. Like, I don't need to see
Yeah.
this random, at bat from, I can't even remember, every player on that team. But like, yeah, that was kind of a moment where I was like, I realized, wow, I miss sports. Like, I really miss sports. And there's just like, I mean, we were so involved with it, but like, there is something very real about turning on a game and being totally and completely immersed in that world for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, whatever it ends up being. And I miss that. I miss being totally immersed in the competition and feeling that, real, true feeling of escape.
Yeah, it's crazy. Jake's been watching the old game. I haven't. I've just been binging shows like CC and Harky. I've just been watching anything that comes my way. I watched 2 full seasons of a show on Saturday.
What? Which show?
Well, I found out I have a free trial to Apple TV.
Okay.
So I watched Home Before Dark, which is like an hour-long episodes, 10 episodes. And then I watched Mythic Quest, which is Rob from Always Sunny's new show.
Okay.
Comedy about video game director, producer.
How was it?
I liked both. The second one's only like half-hour episodes, 6 episodes a season or something like that. So real quick. And then the Home Before Dark is this little cute girl who solves a murder. But it's like a mixture of a kid show and Ozark. Like, it's very serious at times, but then very little kid. But they pull it off. Very tricky. So
nice, man. I had never seen Ozark before, and Andrea and I watched. I think we've watched. We're up to episode 4 of season 3, and I think we've done this just in a week. I think. Yeah.
Wow,
so
that's crazy.
We've been crushing. Maybe it's 2 weeks. But we've been absolutely crushing, and I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think season 3 of Ozark's really good. I was
awesome.
worried. I was like, which is going to go? But I thought it was great.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. So far, 4 episodes in, I'm loving it. And it's great. It's funny, like, because the one other thing we've been doing, like, when we need something lighter, is rewatching One Tree Hill, which is one of my all-time favorites. And it just, like, puts me in a happy place of thinking about, like, high school summer, like.
I was gonna say you need to cut up Ozark like that. Just it's so muted, the tone and like the visuals are like dark. It's hard to binge.
Yeah, it is. It's dark. It's funny because it's like it's not as like overtly dark as maybe even like a Breaking Bad or like or maybe like some of the absolute like gratuitous gore in like a Game of Thrones or something, but there's something about Ozark that it's like menacingly dark,
it like seeps into you too after a while.
Yeah,
you're like,
but I love it. But I love
it's
it.
Great.
It's great. Yeah, it is.
All right, I think we'll let you go. We kept you long enough. We thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Thank you for having me. I love you both. I wish you continued success. Thank you for continuing to generate content. Yeah. And you know what? Let's pray we get a baseball season at some point.
Oh yeah. What's your guess right now? You think there's going to be any resemblance of a normal season, a completely wacky exhibition season, or no season at all?
I honestly, I think what I hear from people is always this: we don't know, and I think that's. And I think that's like the insider answer right now is like, we don't know, so it's basically just like all of us reading whatever, tea leaves and epidemiological graphs we're looking at, etc. I personally, it's interesting if you look at like the IHME model, that the Gates Foundation does. It assumes social distancing, full restrictions through the end of May, and with that, it has things really getting quieter in June, July. So if we can all show the discipline through May, which I hope we do, be able to show that discipline if that's what we're being asked, I would think that like some things would open up in some way in the summer. It just looks like even the models would suggest that is possible. How that ends up manifesting, I don't know. But the way I look at it is this. One thing I feel really good about is I think that Major League Baseball is being very open-minded about this, right? And the only way you come up with a solution for how you can have this season is being open-minded. What that ends up meaning, what iteration of creativity ends up being the one that's actually selected, who knows? I don't think anybody knows. But I think the number one key is not having a fixed idea in your head of like, we can only have a season if it looks like this.
Yeah.
Because this probably isn't going to exist. So it has to be more so open to whatever. And I think baseball has shown that willingness. And so that encourages me that they'll come up with whatever option is available that just doesn't jeopardize health and safety, if there is one that is available.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something weird. We know some people now within some buildings, and we heard that Cactus League and Grapefruit League was never once talked about ever. They're like, we don't know where that came from. That is not real.
That's the tough thing, right? Because you don't know when anything could be possible right now. You don't know what is or isn't stimulated by actual conversations or just somebody conjuring it themselves,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I mean, I don't know. Do you guys have any definitive feeling on do you have any predictions?
Jake's the optimist and I'm the pessimist. And I don't think we'll get anything resembling a regular season. Like, I think if we get anything, we're going to have to call it an exhibition season. And it's not going to be for a World Series because it's just going to be so different. And I think it's going to push us back a while until we actually have baseball because they're not going to be able to have fans for like a long time.
But if it's an exhibition, then I don't think they'll do it because all of a sudden you don't even like feel
that's
compelled to watch, like
exactly.
And never mind compelled to watch, but Garrett Cole's got the $1 million arm. Like why would he want to pitch in that? So I don't know. I'm kind of where you're at, and the baseline is nobody knows, but I do believe, and it kind of is what you were saying before, how time has passed, and yet sometimes it feels like it hasn't, and sometimes it feels like we've been doing this for 3 months. And I don't know, when we originally started talking about this and we realized how severe it was like, well, let's see where we're at in June and July. So that's I'm kind of still there. Like maybe things are better, maybe they're not. And I do turn the blind optimism, and then I have a low moment where I watch college wrestling, and I'm like, give me something. I would love. I hope the NBA and I'm sure your answer would be pretty similar. But if they came up with something creative and found a way to do it because they have the least amount of players and things like that, if they could figure something out that would be incredible. Even this was my shower thought the other day, and these are becoming a trend for Jimmy. He's finding out. Is that, man, what if they just said, hey, the regular season stands as is and Bucks Lakers finals. Like isolate the guys for a couple weeks and let it rip. I don't know.
I feel like you're going to have an entire playoff, but I do think there's, they're in a little easier situation maybe to be creative because it's less players, and they've also had such a huge portion of their regular season already played, right? So there are maybe some considerations to why you'd want to play a certain amount of regular season games, but like if they had to, they could start the playoffs as is, and you would still feel satisfied with what's happened in the regular season, So that. I keep wondering, could you have like some sort of medical tent set up at every stadium or arena where every single person who enters it has to get tested each day. You know, if rapid testing is available at that point, right? And
Imagine if that's the new norm, like how
Yeah.
security after 9/11, now it's the new norm. Like imagine if we had disease testing before every
Right?
big event.
I know.
That'd be
I know.
crazy.
Until you have a vaccine, you know, if that's the answer and it's, you know, readily available without compromising the resources needed throughout the country, then I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. You know, maybe that's the way to do it. It's weird. I do feel encouraged that I think the sports are being very, very open-minded and creative, and I think they'll need to be, and that makes me feel good. And I also know that they're not going to do anything that risks health and safety. So it's like, okay, what under that prism becomes a realistic option? We'll see what that is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, and it's not up to anyone right now. You know, that's the wild thing.
Yeah.
Nope.
Like, everyone's
Nope,
gonna wait.
it's
No
not.
one knows anything.
I've got one more, and I swear it's one more, and I
No,
think
no
Ruocco
problem,
will
man.
like
No
this
problem.
one. I moved to New York City. Good timing.
Yeah, seriously. Well,
But I'm all open for any food recs, whether delivery or not. I know we're supposed to be doing that, so I don't know if you've got anything you're hyping or if you've got anything kind of
Yeah.
Upper East Side-ish area. Give me the goods. I know you know.
So I used to live Upper East Side, actually. Now I
Okay.
live downtown, when everything reopens, you got to go to my favorite restaurant, Mark Forgione in Tribeca. It's amazing. They're
Okay.
closed right now, but one of Mark's like sister restaurants, Kyo, KHE-YO, is doing delivery. I don't know if they're doing it all the way to Upper East, but they might be, and it is fantastic. Great. Carbone is doing delivery, which is amazing. They're incredible. Prince Street Pizza is doing delivery, but I don't think all the way up there. Joe's Pizza, I think, is doing delivery.
Okay.
Which Joe's is great. Upper East Side, what did I love? You know what I would see is Sojourn doing food right now. Sojourn is on 79th and 2nd. Great spot. Fantastic food. You should see if they're doing any delivery right now. That would be a spot I would highly recommend up there.
It's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Got him.
That's what I'm here for. I will say, when it comes to, and I'm just giving you a little snippet because obviously we don't know what's open, what's not right now. But when it comes to New York food scene, I feel strong.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I mean, Ruocco, you know, I
Yeah.
get the hand. I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You understand.
Perfect. Thank you, man. We appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Back to back. Belly to belly.
That was Ryan Ruocco, our dear friend. He told us that he loved us. We love him too. Very nice conversation. Head looks great. Bald.
Does.
It does. Pulls it off nice.
Should I shave it?
No, I don't think you could.
It's not good. Peanut head, and I think it's bumpy. That
I
can't
think
be
you
good.
I think you need to go afro.
Okay.
Or just do what you're doing. It's good. It works.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back. Voicemails on Friday's show. We'll record Thursday night.
Leave them.
Leave a voicemail on Wednesday or Thursday, 908-845-5792. Call in, leave a voicemail. We appreciate it. Go Yanks. Tell them, Grams.
Go Yankees.